Today's episode is a conversation with Baker, the founder of Thea, a free study platform designed to make learning more efficient and engaging. I met Baker in August of last year where we put together a back-to-school event for students in New York City. I was so impressed by his passion and achievements, especially at such a young age, so I've been wanting to learn more about his journey ever since, and that's why I'm super excited to share this conversation with you today. We will dive into Baker's unconventional journey of starting Thea while still in high school, the challenges he faced as a young founder, the lessons he learned along the way, his vision for the future, and his advice for becoming successful. Get ready to be inspired. Let's go. Hi, Baker. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited to hear about your journey being a young founder and for you to share your story with everyone else as well.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
Get started.
Yeah. So for our first question, it's kind of an icebreaker that I usually ask my guests, and it is, what gets you up in the morning?
Man, getting deep on the first question is crazy, but I would say that I get to work with a lot of really interesting and cool people, whether that's at school or in the Thea office, and I feel like that's great. I get to work with amazing people, and I get to work on what I'm passionate about, and I feel like that's really important to me. And when I get up, I know that like, oh, I get to do this today, or I get to go see this person today, and I feel like that's really important to me and how I've interacted with things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love asking this question because I feel like oftentimes when we have to wake up in the morning, it's like dreading school or like dreading work, and it's kind of hard to get yourself out of bed. So it's really inspiring as a first note to hear that you get up with excitement to see like what kind of impact you can make in your company or like with the people you work with, right?
Yeah, I think like especially something that I've learned while starting Thea is that's like so important to do what you like. And not like I have friends that are going to college for like, oh, I'm going to economics and I'm going to go do investment banking. And I'm like, there's some people that are like, oh, I totally want to do that. And there's like, I totally want to work 100 hours a week. I am not that person. Like, I don't really like the idea of doing that or like chasing money or like a bigger and bigger box to live in. I really like the idea of trying to build something cool. I just like making things. So.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you discovered that at a much younger age than most people, because I think that in high school people go chase the college admissions,
Yeah.
then graduation, and then like a very high paying job, right, like investment banking or like consulting, and then after a few years then they just realize, like I did, like I was like, oh, not happy, and like starting to think about what comes next, but you already know the infinite game, which I see brings you a lot of joy.
yeah just do what makes you happy, not what makes you money.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should all try and maximize our life doing that, but it's not a very common piece of advice that you hear nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as school itself, so you developed a platform to help studying easier, so I want to hear about your educational background. What was your relationship with school like growing up?
Right, so my relationship with school is a little bit offset because I dropped out of high school to do Thea for a year, but now I'm back because I like to say it's because my mom would kill me if I was an actual high school dropout. So definitely not allowed to just completely drop out and drop it all. Not that having taken a year off, not that I would anymore. I feel like it's very important to have an education, and I feel like it's very important to have a high school degree, very important to have a college degree. And I feel like there's a lot of advice out there that's like, hey, college isn't needed. College is this, college is that. I feel like it is more or less needed in my opinion. But my overall relationship with school was interesting. Like I did really like school. I liked what I was doing, especially, you like some classes more than others. Like I took probably every computer science and data science course offered at my high school. Like I was just really, really into that. And so I just, those were the things that like I would just wake up in the morning. I'm like really excited to, I have my data science class. Like I can go there and I can, work on this project. But yeah, so that's kind of my relationship with school.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. So like some classes, not like some, but the classes that you really like just like made you more excited about school.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has that, right? Like everyone has, maybe they don't like this specific class. Maybe they don't hate it, but like they just, I prefer this class. I feel like that's kind of the way I viewed school.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's great that you're probably pretty relatable to many of the students listening out there. And so they're like, okay, I see myself in Baker. That means I can, see you like how I can, achieve things as you have too.
Yeah.
So in terms of your excitement with computer science, were you always into tech, or did that passion develop later? Like, how did you discover you really enjoyed it?
I I definitely, like, my high school was not very STEM oriented, I would say, or my middle school especially, was not very STEM oriented. It wasn't not STEM oriented, but it just wasn't like, oh, we didn't have the really great STEM programs in the middle school. That it was like, it's definitely more of a humanities-esque school. But yeah, and so I never really got that exposure, but I just kind of did it on my own or something. Like I would build computers, like I just found that really interesting, or I'd be really into like YouTube videos about that kind of stuff, or I found kind of myself increasing in passion with this thing. And then when I got to high school and I was able to take elective classes, and then I was able to take like AP computer science, or I was able to take like data science with Python, then I really got into it. And I was like, wow, this is something that is really cool. I really like, and I would imagine myself doing this on a daily basis.
Oh, that's fantastic. So was there a particular point where you like discovered computers, or like did any family members have that interest, or like how did you like start at the very beginning and realize?
I don't know. I don't know the exact answer to that question, just because I don't know. I feel like, we live in a time where just everyone has computers and everyone has like phones and stuff. But I don't know. I just found myself really interested in how it worked. I thought it was weird how like there's a screen in front of me and like the pixels are changing when I like move the mouse. Like that's really how like I never really understood that. And then you just get into the coding and the software and then the GPUs behind it and the stuff like that. And so it's really interesting to understand how things work. Like peel back the veil and like look into it and see, oh, like this is how it works, or something like that.
Okay, interesting. So the reason I ask that is because I wanted to understand, like, on a deeper level, the kind of like attitude or principles you live by to discover your passion. And I think it really centers around like that kind of curiosity, right? Like you might just interact with things that are normal in the world. Like people might just take like phones for granted, but you developed a curiosity for being like, oh, how is that possible, right? And so, yeah, I think that's really amazing. Cool. And in particular, what inspired you to create your own study platform? Was there a specific moment where you thought, I need to build this myself?
I would say like, in my opinion, I just didn't think that there were like amazing study platforms out there. I thought there were amazing memorization tools like, Quizlet, for example, amazing memorization tool, amazing online flashcards, but there was nothing that would like teach you about something. So there's stuff that's like, oh, I'll teach you which president FDR was, or, what was the New Deal. But there was nothing out there that was like, I can teach you how to understand, okay, why was the New Deal enacted in this time? Or like, who really is FDR? Like, why was he elected? That type of thing. There's like not really that out there. And I was like, I can sit here and memorize facts. Like I'd sit at my desk, like robotically, like flipping through flashcards. And I was just like, gosh, there's gotta be a better way.
Yeah.
Come on. Like there's no way. Like I have to sit here and memorize these facts. I just felt, it just felt robotic to me. I just like, I don't know. I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, I hated the memorization part the most of school. And what you made, I think it's something that brings tutoring, like a type of tutoring, to more students, and that access to really get deeper understanding outside of the classroom when they don't have a teacher. They might not have the resources. So yeah, it's super awesome. And about the no good study applications, so in terms of developing Thea specifically, what kind of features did you want to make sure it had that the other tools didn't?
Right. And so I think for me at least, like huge procrastinator, the hardest part about studying is like starting. And so I really wanted to have an easy way to start studying. And so like if you go on Thea, like, oh, you can upload your handwritten notes from class, or you can just say like my test is on the Roaring 20s or something like that, and then you can just immediately get started. That for me was like the biggest hack, just because I didn't want to sit there for an hour inputting and then start studying. You can just kind of like type it, wait 30 seconds, and then go. That was like one of the biggest features that I wanted out of like an AI tool. And the second biggest thing was really focusing on like understanding the material, just because I just hated memorizing stuff. I felt like, you get the memorization if you have intuition around the subject. And so when you're studying, it's like, okay, if you understand like why FDR was elected and then like whatever in the time period, then you understand like who he was and stuff like that. Or if you understand like why the New Deal was in place, then you understand like what it is, like, or if you understand the time around it. So I think that was like the biggest thing. It was making it really easy to start, where you just like super simple, like plug and play application. And then the second thing was making sure that you're actually understanding everything instead of just memorizing it.
For sure. That's tackling, I think, two of the biggest problems that I see too in terms of students like studying hard. So first of all, the procrastination, right? When I tried it, like there were so many games and I was like, you know what, this is fun. Like I'm not a student anymore, but I like this. I wish I had that. And then also for understanding, because I emphasize this all the time, where students, they feel like they just have to read textbooks over and over again. First of all, it's not engaging, but second of all, they're actually not getting much return on investment at all. And so when it comes to Thea, it's the perfect match for using AI, since when you have a tutor, for example, they will try to ask you questions for you to draw connections yourself. And when you connect between different topics and the reason, like, FDR, like you said, then that's how you can imprint it into your knowledge and retain that. And so using AI to draw those connections for the student and then ask them is just so perfect. Before we continue, I want to mention that this episode is sponsored by Thea, which feels fitting because we're hearing directly from the founder himself. So whether you're cramming for an AP US history exam or just trying to stay on top of your physics homework, studying can feel like an uphill battle. There are a lot of AI tools out there, but how do you know which ones to trust? That's where Thea Study comes in, the ultimate study tool to help you learn smarter, not harder. Just upload your notes, textbook pages, or even a test description, and Thea instantly builds personalized study kits. These include flashcards, quizzes, games, and even adaptive smart study sessions that help you actually master the material, not just memorize it. No more scrambling for resources or guessing what to study. Thea does the work for you, so you can just focus on getting the A. I've worked with Thea multiple times now, whether it's on my main YouTube channel or Instagram, because it's genuinely an awesome tool to help you study with more efficiency, and it's more engaging. The best part, it's completely free to use. Try Thea Study today and transform the way you learn. Just check it out with the description below, or head to theastudy.com/Amy, that is TheaStudy.com/AMY, and you can get started, because studying shouldn't be harder than the test itself. Yeah, when I tried it, it was just like, wow, that's amazing. and then when I like met you at the back to school event, I was like, wow. So it was like, like not like a really like old experienced person who made it, but it's born out of like your own need and desire. Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the name then, Thea, how did you come up with that? Is there a story or a meaning behind it?
It wasn't me that came up, it was my sister actually.
Oh.
But so yeah, we were kind of thinking about a name for this thing, maybe like summer of 2023. We were thinking about a name for this thing, and my sister was like, oh, like it should have like a personification for the AI, but it also should like be some sort of slang. And so she was like, oh, a lot of kids say get the W. So the idea was like get the A with Thea. And so like that was like the original part. And then like, oh, now like the more political answer is like, oh, it's short for Athena. It's like goddess of wisdom and everything. But, it started from like, oh, just get the W, get the A. So stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. So it was an accident that it matched up with Athena kind of.
No, I think there were other kind of slangs that we had, but like this one fit perfectly because it was like, we intentionally kind of matched up in that way. Like we had other ideas, but this one just stuck because it had so much more personification ideas around it.
Oh, that's so perfect. As someone who's fascinated by branding and names and like precision of words, I just love how it packs a story and like so much thought into it, and so it's memorable too, and then people can like feel like, so yeah, your sister did a great job. That's yes. Really smart. I also like because Athena starts with the letter A, and it's like, I don't know, I use a lot of things on my channel, for example, like with an A, just to get that vibe. So similar idea. Regarding the process of building Thea and how it is right now, so what was the decision making behind making your father the CEO of Thea while you took a more junior role at the company as a software engineer?
Yeah, so when you're a high schooler and you like kind of drop out, not a lot of people take you seriously. So I turned to like the only person that I had, which was like, hey, Dad, like, can you take a look at this? And he He thought it had potential. So he was in data. He was kind of in the software side of things, and so he had a good intuition around stuff. And so kind of turned to the only person that I could, which was like my dad. And he kind of basically dropped everything that he was doing and just focused solely on Thea, which I appreciate.
Oh.
But yeah, but especially in the early days, it was fun because it was like kind of just my dad figuring out the business side of things, and I was just like coding. So it was just kind of like a duo partnership. So yeah, that was fun.
Oh, that's very heartwarming that he just dropped everything and supported you fully. Do you think that he developed this like trust in you because you're like he knew that you're a smart kid and he believed in the vision, or like, because I feel like maybe it's just like Asian parents, but like I don't think my parents would like support me for an entrepreneurial idea in high school or even in college, let alone like drop everything to help with it.
I think it really helped that I had like a working proof of concept, and I was able to like show it to him and like pitch him. Like that was very important. It wasn't necessarily just an idea, and it was like a real thing that you could interact with. And so he saw that. And then the idea wasn't necessarily for me to take a year off until it got later in the summer when it had some like actual merit to it. But it really just, we started like laying out, okay, what are like the pros and cons of taking a year off, or at least dropping out for a little bit. And there wasn't really many cons. I mean, like the cons you would have is like, okay, I don't get to graduate with my class or stuff. But like, even if Thea had like completely blown up, like gone terribly, whatever, like still like an amazing experience for me to like be in a work setting and go work on something for a year. If it goes great, then it goes great, like whatever. But even if it had gone bad, like it's still an amazing experience. It's still a great life experience to have of working on something for a year and taking a year off and doing that.
Yeah,
so.
I love that perspective. I think that especially when I was growing up, we just went by the books, like you have to go to school at a certain time, then get a job, etc. But advice that I've been hearing recently that I actually really agree with now as a 20-something-year-old is that when you're young, you have to take more risks. And like, especially if you're passionate about an idea, you have to give that idea a fighting chance to see what the potential really is, because otherwise you would just simply never know, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially in high school, like it doesn't matter if you take it, like it really doesn't. Like, again, like if I had gone completely wrong, like whatever, it's fine. Like just go back the next year. You're a year older, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, for sure. And you always gain something from it, like you said. It's either experience or it does well, and it could just help, even if it's not like millions of people, still helping many people,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. So about the technology itself, when large language models or LLMs emerged, you integrated AI into Thea right away. What made you so quick to jump on that opportunity, and how did it change your vision for the platform?
Oh man, I love talking about like this AI stuff. Can I make the question a little bit broader?
Sure.
So like AI is really interesting because I talked to a little bit of people about this, but like AI is really interesting because the definition of AI has changed throughout the years a lot. Like in the 20th century, it was all like, okay, if a computer can beat a human at chess, that is artificial intelligence. That is a sentient being. And then a computer smoked a human at chess, and then we were like, well, that's not really AI. That's just pattern recognition and it's just data science. But if a computer could beat a human at Go, then it's AI for sure. And then a computer smoked a human at Go, and then we were like, okay, well, that's not really AI. It's just patterns recognition. And everyone was just like, it's the Turing test. It's the Turing test. If you can have a conversation with a computer and you not know it's computer, then it's AI. And then ChatGPT came out, and people were like, wow, that's really interesting. Even I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a sentient being I'm looking at. And then you peel back like the technology, you peel back the veil, and it's like, no, this is just data science and pattern recognition and like all this stuff. And so it's really interesting how large language models work as a whole. And I swear I'll get into the Thea side in a second, and this will segue into it. But it's really interesting how like large language models work as a whole, because it really doesn't have any knowledge of like biology or law or math or any of this. So the technology has been around for years. And so, I don't know if you have an iPhone or a Samsung, but if you have an iPhone and you open up the keyboard, there's those 3 little boxes above the keyboard, and it tries to predict the next word.
Yes.
ChatGPT or large language models is just that, except it tries to complete the next 3 paragraphs. That's all it is. Like the technology has been around for years. OpenAI was kind of the first people to take it and put it on a huge scale and see what happens. And so again, it's just like a super, super souped up version of autocomplete that's basically saying, I think this goes here, and then I think this goes here, and then I think this goes here. And so it has no understanding of law or biology or math or any of the things we're trying to like teach students with. And so there's this term in that AI people use called hallucinations. And so hallucinations is basically like, hey, this is not what it is. Like ChatGPT is telling you something, or it's just lying to you, or something like that, or it's hallucinating something that didn't happen, right? And so when we were first starting Thea, like when I was first put AI into this thing, like the error rate was awful. I think this was back when there wasn't even 3.5 turbo. This was back when it was just 3.0, so it was obviously a little bit worse. But when we did incorporate it, or like when I was really getting in deep, like to the questions, the error rate was like 50%, and probably 25% of that was because the prompt was bad. But the other 25% of it, I swear, it wasn't the prompt. It was a large language model. But yeah, so it was really hard to incorporate it in a way that was like, you can't have bad questions. Like you can't, like, for example, like I was trying to test out U.S. history and like the Civil War, and it said that the Confederacy won the Battle of Vicksburg. Battle of Vicksburg was the most like Union victory, like completely swung the way of the war. Like it was not a Confederate victory at all. Like, and so it was like trying to convince me, and it was providing an explanation about how this happened. Like, this is not true. Like,
oh my God.
So it really, like, again, it really doesn't understand that, like, it doesn't have any concept of history or math or biology. Like, it's just a huge autocomplete model. So it's really interesting how that works.
Yeah. Wait, I guess this is getting a little deep into it, but what did it get it wrong because it wasn't fed the right information, or does it just like to make things up sometimes?
So there's a lot of debate about that, and I'm not fully educated on exactly what's going on deep in the technology, but the general consensus is that ChatGPT, like 4.0, is trained off of 40 billion documents. And so those 40 billion, like when it goes out and says, hey, who won this battle? And it goes across the 40 billion documents or whatever, you know, there might be one document. There's like probably a bunch of documents that are saying, okay, Union victory. But there might be one document out there that's saying like, hey, you know, technically, you know, because of this, and this, it might be this person might have won, even though technically officially they really didn't. And so that's kind of, in my opinion, where the hallucinations probably come from. So yeah, that's interesting. Another interesting thing is, like, if you want to get into it, is the DeepSeek situation. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
But, like, do you want to talk about
Yeah, no.
Right.
Do you want to give some context for those who don't know?
So DeepSeek is the Chinese it's a side project of a Chinese hedge fund. It's a large language model that outcompetes ChatGPT in some metrics, like the strongest version of ChatGPT in some metrics. But the real big problem with it is that it's kind of free. And so ChatGPT or OpenAI has a model that's $200 a month per user. They lose money per month on that user, per user per month on that model when people are running it. And so what's crazy is DeepSeek is basically the same like thresholds, the same whatever, but it's free for everyone. And so, for example, like when it first came out, Nvidia stock completely plummeted. I think it was probably the 12%. It was like 9 or probably like 12 figures worth of losses from Nvidia, because like, why would you buy AI chips if like this, like, why would you buy all this servers and everything if this company is doing it for $6 million? Because they did it for $6 million, and OpenAI did it for 12 figures, so somewhere in the 100 billions. I think it was 600 billion. I'm forgetting the exact number, but somewhere in the 600 billion range, and they did it for 6 million. Like, what is going on? Why are we giving these American companies so much money to make these things? It doesn't cost that much. And so the DeepSeek situation is really interesting because the technology, it's open source, so you can kind of get in and kind of understand it. And so when you really peel back like what's happening, and this is kind of why Nvidia stock went back up, there is extreme evidence to suggest that it's a distilled model. And so what a distilled model is, like, so there's AI models that are just normal. A distilled model is like a smaller version of the AI model that's trained off of the output of the AI model. DeepSeek is. And so let's say, for example, like ChatGPT, again, trained off of 40 billion documents. This is kind of a rough explanation of what's going on. Like OpenAI is like, hey, we're going to teach this AI to read and write and understand the English language. And we're going to teach it like everything that goes in. We're going to train on 40 billion documents. We're going to do all this stuff. DeepSeek, for example, is just saying, instead of teaching something to understand English, let's teach it to respond as if it were ChatGPT. And so there's extreme evidence to suggest that this company was calling ChatGPT a bunch of times, and then instead of having a document of like 40 billion things, they're having a data set of like 40 million things. And so it's like hello means this, or like FDR is this, or like the Roaring Twenties is this, rather than like huge documents and huge data around all of this, right? And so it's obviously run for a lot cheaper because it's a lot smaller. So what I think is going to end up happening in like America in general, or like in the AI space in general, is there's going to be this huge like gate kept models that essentially would run on like $10,000 per user per month. But that's going to be gate kept. And then they're just going to distill it. And then OpenAI is going to have like this model that's just as good as the huge gate kept model, but it's like a distilled version that's pretty free. So that DeepSeek has kind of changed the way of how to train a model, which is really interesting.
Wow, I see. Thank you for the explanation. Oh my gosh, I can tell that you just love this topic so much.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so fascinated as well. So with this distilled model, then do you still think that DeepSeek will be used more than ChatGPT, for example, because it's free?
Yeah. So it is free. Obviously, like, there's some rough things. Like I wouldn't use it for Thea, for example, because if you're studying like Tiananmen Square, you're not gonna get that out of DeepSeek. Like you can ask it about it, and it's just gonna say, sorry, I can't give you information about this.
We tested it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, that was like one of the first things we tested, and it said like, sorry, I can't answer that kind of question. And then we asked about an event in the U.S., and then it gave an answer. And it can answer that kind of question, just not that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if someone's studying Chinese history, what am I supposed to do? Like, can't really use DeepSeek, even though it's technically like better than the model we're technically using right now for all of our calls for Thea. We're obviously not using the $200 a month one because that'd be ridiculous. But it's technically better, but like, no, I'm not gonna use it.
Yeah, I think that the idea how China, they didn't get the fancy chips like the US could, but they were resourceful and they made something anyway. That's actually really inspiring to me as well.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally like great thinking, absolutely innovative in every single way, is going to change the way that people make AI models, but I'm not going to use it. But
yeah.
Amazing idea.
Yeah. No, the concept about it, I think, to broaden it to like anyone listening, is like, sometimes we get these problems thrown at us. And I find this a lot too, where, for example, I grew up with like migraines, but then these problems force me to be more innovative or efficient and to be better in other ways. And so I just find that story like pretty interesting. Yeah, demonstrates that. Just to reiterate, you took a year off from high school to work full-time as a software engineer at Thea. What was that experience like, taking the leap to do something so courageous? Did you feel you were missing out on anything, considering your friends, or any other thing you would be missing out on?
Yeah, obviously, it's tough to like, oh yeah, guys, or I'd tell my friends like, yeah, guys, I'm not gonna go to class anymore. I'll be out working in an office. So yeah, I mean that was kind of tough, and I don't know, but like they're still around. Like I'm still in the same city as them. I'm still hanging out with them. I'm just not hanging out with them every single day. And I go to a really small school, so when I went back to school, I was able to incorporate really well just because I knew everyone. So I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the question a little bit.
No worries. So what were the challenges, especially like you being so young and then like starting to work in an office environment? Did you have any feelings surrounding that? Anything you learned?
Yeah. I would say this is going to be a hot take, but in my opinion, I really liked working in an office. I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased because I was like going into work every day. Like I was still doing like 12-hour days, but I was like going into work every day. Like, oh, I get to work on something I'm really passionate about. I definitely like that more than school, just because, I go to school, I'm bouncing between like 6 different subjects every day. And then after school, I went to a school where a sport was required. So I'm going to school 8 a.m. every single day, got the homework out, like doing whatever, then going to a sport, come home at like 6 p.m. absolutely destroyed, and then it's like, okay, I have 2 tests tomorrow, and like I have homework to do, and so you're done by like 11 p.m. and then you're just like, oh gosh, I have to get up and like do everything again. But like the thing is about like working, which I really liked, is I'm getting to work at like 9ish, and I'm staying later. I'm staying later to school. I'm staying until like 7 or 8. However, when I get home, I'm done. Like I get to chill out for a little bit. I'll do whatever for a little bit, and again, like I was getting up every day, like doing what I love to do. So it was like getting up today, I get to code today. Like, oh, that's awesome. Like,
oh.
yeah.
I see. So for me, running my own business, I'm thinking of it all the time, and I work on it. Well, I guess I work from home, but it like never really ends. Like just because I eat dinner and then like, I'm still thinking about it, or I work until like I go to bed. So is it just like you only work on it in the office? Is that like kind of the boundaries you set?
Oh yeah. Work and home separation, I think is the saying. Yeah. That's very big hack. Like I especially like, I even do that now. Like I'll go to the Thea office and I'll like find a quiet corner and I'll do homework. Like I'll do my schoolwork, and then I'll maybe like I still kind of work part-time as like a advisor or something. And so I'll do a little bit of Thea work, but then most of the time I'm like there, I'm just like kind of doing my own homework, just because then like I get home and I'm done. Like that's the mentality I want to have. Like I get home and I'm done. But yeah, being back in school is funny because like now I have homework again. I'm applying to colleges, and that's so fun.
Oh, so it's funny because in the beginning you emphasized education is important.
Oh, yeah.
Stay in school, but then you're like, but it's a drag.
Yeah. Maybe it'll get better in college when I have like a major and I'm like taking the classes that is like most just basically only the classes that I'm super passionate in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, like again, I don't hate any of the classes I'm in. I definitely don't. Like genuinely, like all my heroes are my teachers. Genuinely like especially like my computer science teacher or my data science teacher, Mr. Hansen. Amazing person, like super innovative guy, with especially like with how he taught was amazing. But yeah, all my heroes are my teachers for sure. It's not even close.
Wow, having the right teachers is so valuable, because like my AP chemistry teacher was the reason I started doing chemical engineering. And then my computer science at my high school was actually not a good program, where my few friends who took it, they would just be like, full of nerds, it's not fun at all, like it's just like I don't know, they found it really hard and they didn't really understand the value of it. But it sounds like the opposite of you, like having this great teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get into a little bit of specific, but like the way he taught was really interesting, because he'd like put a new unit's problem on the board without teaching us, and he'd be like, yo, how do you solve it? And then we'd be like, what do you mean how do you solve it? like aren't you supposed to like teach us this? And so we'd all like get up and like try to figure this out, like whatever. 15 minutes would go by, we kind of ask him like, hey, is this close at all? And he'd be like, you guys are not close at all. Like, and so and he'd like give us a little hint, and then he'd like go back, we'd all go back and like try it out, and then he'd be like, all right guys, this is how you do it. So, like, but that was like a really cool way to teach, and it's really like impacted how I approach problems, and like how to approach, like it's really like teaching innovation, because you're trying to like innovate the way to solve the problem, if that makes sense. So yeah, amazing teacher. So. Yeah,
no, I was gonna say that way of teaching exactly helps you have an entrepreneurial mindset in life and in school, and in figuring out like how to run your business and like create a new product.
Yeah, so cool. I agree 100%.
Yeah, that's so cool. Did you use that kind of like, did you find inspiration from the way your teachers taught and incorporate that into Thea at all?
Yeah. So again, like when you study with Thea, you boot up whatever, you put in your terms, and then you go to these questions, and it's based off of like understanding. And so it's kind of asking you something completely out of your league that you kind of just have to figure out. And of course, like once you try to answer it, we'll give you the detailed explanation of how to do it and how to do everything. But like we're really trying to push you to your limit. And so there's this like fine limit within learning. I don't know I forget the exact name for it, but like you can't have the question be too easy. Like even if you're studying on your own, you can't have something be too easy that you're just bored. But you can't have something be too hard that you're just completely lost in a way that's just terrible. So there's like this nice like sweet spot of not too easy, not too hard, but I don't know how to solve it. And so then you try to experiment with stuff. So that's kind of how that works, I suppose.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. I'm glad I asked. So it really tries to find the sweet spot of pushing students, and that's why it's engaging, and students can actually, learn better that way overall.
Yeah. I think like most platforms do this, but like if you get something right on certain terms or whatever, like, okay, yeah, you understand like who Clara Barton was, like, okay, then we don't have to ask you about that again, like, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah. I remember when I was doing like math tutoring for like math competitions, it was the first time where I was learning basically the same way that you did. Like the teacher would like put something on the board and then we'd be like, what? And then we'd like try it first. But I think that's what really developed that innovative mindset that carried into other parts of my life too, and made me better in regular school. That's like, outside of my math tutoring. And so, yeah, I think that the education system kind of lacks in some areas because like the variation between public schools and teachers and things like that, Yeah. But, yeah.
The whole education system is interesting, and that's like another topic.
Oh, okay.
But I will say, like, I do really like the way that the American higher ed education system, like college system, is done. Because I was talking to someone from like Lithuania, for example, and basically you take a test when you're 16, and then based off of how you do on that test, you're ranked like on a leaderboard, and they go down the leaderboard, first come, first serve. Like, okay, I want to be a doctor, and then you go to the doctor school. I want to be a lawyer, you go to lawyer school. And so then basically it just goes down the list. And when you get to the, like, if you want to be a lawyer and you choose that school, like, there's no changing that. Like, you're at the lawyer school, man. Like, you chose this when you were 16 based off of how you did on the test. Like, there's no going back now. Like, you're gonna be a lawyer. So what I like about the American education system is, like, it doesn't matter how well you do, like, on the SAT, for example. Like, you can become a doctor if you really want to. Like, you can go to whatever school, whatever college, and like major in basically whatever, right? And you can then, like, if you're on the pre-med track for 2 years and you're like, you know what, I don't like pre-med, I'm gonna go to economics, like, you can do that. Like, that's amazing. I think the way that we handle wanting to change things in America is like really, really good. And I really like how we also do holistic admissions. I think that's very important, especially because like the UK system is like, oh, you take a test, you take A levels, and then based off of how you do on A levels, then you're just basically admitted or declined.
China too, India too. I think a lot of countries.
Oh man, the Gaokao. I would not. For those who don't know, the Chinese education system basically prepares you for the Gaokao, I believe, and that's like basically their 3-day long, super advanced version of the SAT. It's the college entrance exam, and I think it's like like the top 8% go to the really great schools, and if you're in the 8.1 percentage, then you not as advantaged as other people, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's not great in my opinion.
I feel like that's gotta like kill a kid like from within, like stress wise. I can't imagine the stress that you'd feel.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen like the whole like camps thing for the Gaokao? Like, it's crazy what's going on.
Yeah,
I've
seen. Yeah, I've seen those videos, and so my fiance, he grew up in China, but his parents made him go to international school, and they wanted him to go to college in the US. So fortunately he didn't have to do that. But it's like, yeah, I went to school in China for like 3 days in 3rd grade, and I dropped out after that because I was just like hated it so much. So I feel like this is a good perspective for people who do have the option to be like grateful for what we do have, and I do feel like sometimes I kind of felt that this way too. Like when I was in chemical engineering, I felt like I couldn't really change or like do anything, but it's good to know that there actually is a lot more leeway here versus other places.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like, yeah, so okay, maybe if you're not in your like senior year, second semester, it's like, oh yeah, I want to switch my majors. Like, I don't know about that. But like, but if you're like, for example, like I saw the Yale thing right here. like at Yale, you don't declare they don't let you declare a major, or at least you just don't declare a major until like 2 years in. So until your junior year, you don't have to declare. Like that's like one of the examples of like, okay, yeah, you can explore, you can do like find out what you really like, which I think is really important.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's something people don't realize about the work that goes into launching a tech platform like Thea?
I think in the early days, you're wearing many hats. So like you're coding a lot, and then you're also like trying to recruit people, and then you're also trying to like make sure the demos work. That's very important. And you're also trying to manage the business side of things. You're also trying to I think especially when it's 1 or 2 people, it's just really, really hard, right? And so it is like a lot of really, really long days working. Like when I first started, again, like I didn't mind it because it was just like something that was really fun. But like when you first start, like you're working weekend, like in the summer of 2023, I was probably working like every single day, working on the 4th of July, like whatever, like everything, basically everything. Just like, yeah. So very important that just like, you know, if you're starting something and you don't like it, like don't do that, because especially in the early days, it's gonna not be fun at all. Yeah. And then it's gonna get even worse like later on. So.
Oh, even worse. What do you mean by that? So.
Well, I'm just assuming that like, oh, if I don't like it now, like 3 years from now when I'm doing this, like, am I gonna like it then? Like,
I see. I thought you meant in terms of like the role changes, because you wear a lot of hats in the beginning, right? And then do you get more specialized later?
Oh yeah. I was definitely. I think by the time I went back to school, I was definitely just like software engineer, which is what I love doing. But I was definitely like software engineer. Maybe I would travel around to like the back to school thing, right? Maybe I'll travel around to the back to school thing just for fun. But definitely just like software engineer, which I love to do it. Like I love doing, and I loved being that like specialized person. Definitely taught me a lot. But definitely in the early days, you're wearing a lot of different hats and doing a lot of different things, which is also fun. But yeah, make sure you enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. I actually listened to this in a podcast about entrepreneurship just yesterday. And they said that essentially you need both passion and market demand for, you know, whatever you're doing. But the thing that people get wrong is that passion is not what gets you into the highs, you know, of like the highs and lows, but it's what gets you through the lows. And
for sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what I found super important for people to understand, that like, you know, you literally can't just do it for the money just because there's like potential out there, but it's like, no matter how good the idea is, there's going to be bad things that go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And you need to find that passion and your drive to push through it no matter what.
Yeah. Again, like I just really like making things, like so it wasn't really about like, oh, I want to start this business to make a lot of like, no, it was just like, oh, it's a cool thing. Yeah. I did. And I made it like, oh, it's like a cool, I need this thing and I want it. Like, might as well make it.
Yeah. Intrinsic drive. And that basically the enjoyment at the end of the day. Right. Yeah. Amazing. So we talked about this a lot actually already, like Thea's unique features and their impact, but just to, you know, remind the audience. So Thea isn't just another study app. It's designed to do the busy work like creating flashcards and summaries and even dynamically testing students. So you mentioned multiple features you like, but what feature are you most proud of?
Definitely just the questions. Like again, like as we were talking like about the AI thing, right? The error rate was horrible like when we first started, and it's taken a lot of like work and a lot of checks and like, a lot of things that we're doing to make sure that every single thing going into the questions is accurate and everything coming out of is accurate. The thing is though, like that our error rate will never ever be zero. That's just not how these things work. Like it might be 99.999 like, but it'll never ever be zero. But generally like the things we get wrong now in terms of questions are like, hey, like, okay, this answer is correct, but this answer is more correct. And then someone thought that the answer that was like less correct but still correct was the right answer. And so then they mark it wrong and like send us some feedback and whatever. And like, I think it's also interesting because like we're at the point where, I don't know, it's really rare, but it does definitely happen. And it's taken a lot of work to get to the point where it's really rare and to the point where it's not so egregious. Like, oh my gosh. Like I'm just remembering like the horror stories of the questions. Like when we first like did the beta release, someone got a question that said the Manhattan Project was like squirrels digging tunnels under the city. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like what? Like what is that? Or like a fatty acid is like a acid with no friends. It's like horrible questions. Like what? Like what are you talking about? But yeah, so it's not like that.
It's come a long way.
Yeah, it's come a long way since 2023.
Oh my gosh. No, that's funny. Should be a comedian instead. You know, sometimes when you ask ChatGPT for jokes, the jokes are actually not good. Yeah, so I think that's funnier than the jokes that ChatGPT comes with.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's not funny when you have people like beta testing it in a room in front of you and they're like, hey, could you look at this question? like what? You're like, oh, yeah, well, that's a good one.
Well, good thing you have smart people testing it, because, you know, like if they didn't know, just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I think we actually already answered this, but essentially I was going to ask, like, how did you approach designing Thea to prioritize understanding over just memorization? So is that the smart study feature and like the questions like you just mentioned?
Yeah. So that's definitely the smart study feature, but also just being adaptable to how other people learn. So like for example, if you like go through a bunch of questions, again, like if you're really good at something, we'll change the way the questions work and we'll not ask you about something, and like making sure that everybody's study process is tailored to them. Very important. Like,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, customize. Awesome. Thea has changed so much in the year that I've known the platform and especially in the last few months. What inspires slash motivates you and the team to keep innovating?
Yes. Shout out to the team, by the way. Yeah. So especially for the innovation part, it's interesting just because we're really trying to push the limits of what ChatGPT or the model right now is capable of in terms of questions, in terms of like, oh, like if I upload this 100-page document, then and it's a reading, then you want to get questions on the reading. You don't want to get questions on like if it's a whatever, if it's like a fiction document, if you're reading a book, then you want to get questions on the reading. You want to get reading questions. You want to get a summary of the reading. You want to really be ready for the book. And so we really are trying to like push the limits of like, okay, this document, and then we pull from this, and then we make questions from these and stuff. Like it's hard, but it's cool to see. I think like especially when you have this idea, like we've been in rooms where, or I've been in rooms where it's like, okay, we have this new idea that we're fleshing out, and it's really interesting. Like the concept is really cool, and then we work at it for like 3 months, and it finally comes out. And we're like, yes, like that's really like, I don't know. You've probably heard engineers say like, oh, when you finally have the machine work, like that's like a really really fun thing to have happen. It's like, okay, when I really have the code work, and there's like there's always bugs, but like when there's not a lot of bugs, it's really fun. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like keep getting the feeling of satisfaction of like overcoming one hurdle after another and knowing there's always things to build, right?
Yeah, I think it's also just like, man, like that's cool. like that's happening like in front of me, and like people are using it, and that's really interesting. And like especially because like Thea overall is offered in 80 different languages, and so we have like all these users from different countries, which is also like a whole nother topic that I'd love to get into because it's really interesting how the dynamics of that happened and stuff. But to see like all the testimonials come back about like how, oh my gosh, like this tool is amazing, or a roughly translated version from like Egyptian to English of thank you. It's really fun to see. So
Yeah, for sure. No, I know that me getting like when I get comments or emails thanking me, that's what really gets me through hard times too, and makes me more excited to keep going. So you want to talk about the language stuff? You said you wanna,
yeah.
like.
So the language stuff is really interesting because I'm sure you've heard of like Mr. Beast, for example, but he has all of his videos translated into different language, like probably 80 different languages ish. And so, you know, when you have a product like in English, you can only impact people in English, right? And so what's great about AI as well is like we use AI to translate basically everything. And so it's so easy. Like you don't need an expert to come in that's really, really good at Polish, and then you have them, you know, translate the thing one by one. But then there's also generated content that has to translate. So it's like tough. But now with AI, like you can get a very, very acceptable version. Like there might be like whatever grammar mistake in one page of the random profile section, but generally like it's an amazing tool to translate things. And so really like if AI, I think honestly in my opinion, like AI's number one use case is, or not use case, like number one impact is probably like these large language models translating websites for people in different countries to actually use. Like that's really, really important. I think like if someone can use Thea in Polish that doesn't speak English, like that's a very, very great thing for them to have access to, in my opinion. Like also what's really interesting is like the marketing of it too, like the marketing side of the language. Like we'd introduce a new language, like I remember when we did Greek for the first time, and so then we'd shoot an email to like a Greek influencer or a Greek study influencer, and then you know there's like basically no study platforms that operate in Greek, and so like we can go around, we can look at like all the other competitors, and we're like, oh, this language isn't offered, let's put it in. And then like we put it in, we shoot an email off to the whatever influencer, and then Greek like shoots up because like the usage in Greek shoots up, and then it's like exponentially growing, and we just don't do any more marketing, and people are just telling other people, and it's really cool to see. Like the same thing happened in Poland, for example. So I brought up Polish, like, you know, we were just kind of like sitting there, we made Polish, and then like huge increase in Poland because maybe like other platforms weren't offered there. So it's really cool to see that happen.
Yeah. Oh, that is so exciting. It must be so fun. It's just like, yeah, shoot an email and then boom, you know?
Or like shoot an email to sponsor and then you like do the contract.
Okay. I know. Yeah, there's more that goes on behind the scenes, but overall.
Yeah.
No, the language thing is really nice. Also for, I think, you know, transcribing when you're doing an audio of something, because it just understands the nuance, right? So when I was in consulting, one of my jobs was like kind of like monkey work, was like transcribing like things people were saying in a meeting. And I was just like, I asked my manager multiple times, like, hey, can we get a transcription tool? You know, like, I think this would save time for like team, but they're just all really bad. But, you know, fast forward to now, like, I wouldn't have to be typing anymore. So I think it's really important to understand the benefits of AI, because I do think that I've seen the sentiment online or like sometimes in comments that people might be turned away from it just because they think that it's replacing humans, or like, I don't know. What do you think about the sentiment, like the negative sentiment toward AI?
I think that the negative sentiment towards AI is definitely justified, but like, again, like I'm a very big skeptic of the future of AI. This is like a whole nother topic. This is like a deep topic, but I'm just going to go into it. Again, like these things are bound by like the paradigm that we've set up to make them. And so again, it has no understanding of law or math or biology. And there's all these people talking about, oh, we're going to have general artificial intelligence in like 3 years. Like, no, I highly doubt, like, just because it's not intelligence. And like, again, like the next thing is like, oh, AI was chess, AI was Go, AI was the Turing test. And now it's like, oh, AI is like general artificial intelligence. But like, that's never going to happen, because we're always going to understand how it's made. And we're not going to be like, oh, it's like this magical thing that some engineer made. We're going to be like, no, it's patterns and data science and pattern recognition, whatever. Like, and I also don't think that like to the consumer, especially, that AI is going to get a huge like uptick in like whatever. Like, yeah, it's great that we keep like OpenAI is pushing the limit on math and like whatever else, but it's really not going to make that much of a difference, because when you think about like how it's set up is like, it's just a large language model. It's just a souped up version of autocomplete. Like you can add more documents into it. And again, it's trained on 40 billion. So there might be another like 40 million documents out there, but there's not another 40 billion documents out there that we can like just shove into this thing. And so like the content, I don't think is going to get much better. Like the actual word by word content, probably not going to get much better. I think AI itself is going to get better. I think we're going to add more knacks to it. We're going to add like voice assistant. We're going to add image generation, video generation. We're going to add, you know, if it can read this document, whatever, it's got a bigger bandwidth, but like the actual text generation, the actual like large language model portion of it, I don't think is going to have such an increase like we had from like nothing to ChatGPT 3.0. Like that's just not, I just don't think that's feasible.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's really just this neutral tool based on, you know, data, pattern recognition, and whatever comes good or bad out of it, it's still directed by the human, right?
Yeah.
There's
like a giant AI bubble right now, in my opinion, in terms of like companies, etc. Like I'll go to a conference or something, and there'll be like other startups pitching, and like every single one's an AI company, which isn't necessarily bad, but like I saw one that was like, oh yeah, we're a dog food company and we're AI first. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, what do you mean AI for? Like, you're gonna predict the food that your dog wants? Like, I'm confused. Like, why? Like,
buzzword.
Like, yeah, it's like AI first dog. Okay, like I wish you the best, but interesting. Like, right? Like, yeah. So I think there's a bubble. I think that AI in general is not going to get too much better in terms of the actual text generation. But yeah, I'm optimistic to see how it all plays out. So really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So for the listener out there, if you have heard this far, what were your perspectives on AI before? And let us know in the comments if your perspective has changed. I'm so curious because I feel like we've talked about all the benefits of AI and like given a deeper understanding of it, which has really helped me understand it as well. Because now I'm a little less afraid of, you know, AI taking over the world.
Oh yeah, the concept of oh, AI is going to take over every single software engineer. Like, no,
Yeah.
like I highly doubt. I think that like just because again like with these large language models, even with like a pseudo general artificial intelligence, the error rate will never be zero. It will never ever be zero. It'll always hallucinate. It might be 99.99%, but like if you're a lawyer, like for example, I think there was a lawyer that was like seriously, I think he was like disbarred or something because he used AI to make a law or like a document or something. I don't know the exact details, but I know he was disbarred. I know that they used AI to make a law document and it didn't work out well for them because it hallucinated something. It hallucinated a case that never happened. And so it was like, oh, I can prove this point. Yeah, there was this case that was like Amy versus Baker, and it was like it perfectly fits your point. No, like it never happened. Like doesn't make sense.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, let us know in the comments your thoughts about AI now. Okay, going into the advice and reflections. So, given your journey thus far, what is one big piece of advice, or it doesn't have to be big, what is one piece of advice you'd give students with big dreams, but they don't know where to start?
Yeah, again, find what you really, really like. Sorry. Find what you really, really like and do it. Like genuinely don't, like, the big dream should not be amazing, like crazy money, right? Like again, like searching for like a bigger box to live in is just not how you should go through life, in my opinion. And it's not how I want to go through life anymore. I think I was like, maybe before I took a year off, I was like, yeah, like investment banking, like cool, you know, but now I'm more like, you know, I should probably like major in computer data science, and then I should really like get into what I love to do. And like, again, like I really want to try out a lot of stuff in college, like economics or whatever. And I applied economics to a lot of places, but I really want to do what I like doing. And I think that that's very important to someone who has like big dreams. I think big dreams of creating things is more beneficial to everyone than big dreams of just like getting rich.
Yeah. So big dreams of making something, you know, happen that you're excited about, and that makes you happy, you know. I think that's the big dream at the end of the day.
It doesn't have to be like a software company. It can just be like, oh, like I really love robotics. Like I really love robotics, and I really want to do like battle bots, and that's like I really want to be the world champion in battle bots. Like, okay, great. Like do that. Have that be your thing. Like don't like, I don't know. Don't just do something because, oh, it's good for social or like, or my mom wants me to do this or my dad wants me to do this. No, do it because like you're really passionate about it and you want to get up in the morning and you want to go and do that every single day of your life. So yeah.
So 2 follow-up questions to that. First of all, what if their parents are very strict? So maybe you don't have this experience, but like what kind of ideas would you have for that? And then the second question is, so imagine someone listening is in school right now and they're so busy with so many extracurriculars, they need to do well in academics to get into college. How would they yeah, true. But how would they go about, you know, starting on their big dream, like that big first step? Or like if they have like no experience or like, you know, just like, yeah, how would they start to pursue their dream?
Yeah, so the first question was
Parents.
Parents. Oh yeah. So obviously my mom was like strictly against me taking her on. Like she was she really did not want me to. But like the more I like spent like, because I had like a month and a half of the summer left, the more I like kept talking to her. I was like, you know, there really isn't like a downside to this, and like I'd rather me take this risk now than when I'm like 27, like whatever. And so the more I kind of like pushed respectfully, like, hey, like it's might be a good idea to do this just because there's really no downside. Like there really isn't. And so yeah, obviously like stepping off the moving walkway of high school is tough. But I think you grow a lot from it. And so that's, I'm not necessarily saying you have to take a year off to like be successful at all. Like that's definitely not the case. But if you find yourself in the situation where a year off would make sense for following a project of yours, then sit down and understand like, hey, like maybe there are some cons, maybe there's some pros, but chances are there's probably a lot more pros.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that it's important to also understand why your parent feels a certain way. Perhaps it's stability, learning, growth. And so if you can present your idea in terms of, hey, I'm actually going to work really hard on this. Here are the benefits. Here's what I'm going to learn. Here's why you can trust me on this. And then they're going to be more receptive because it aligns with their overall reasoning for being against it in the first place.
I think, I was definitely very just lucky to have supporting parents, but also like a really supporting school, because I met with the headmaster and I was like, I don't know what he's going to say with that. Like I met with the principal. I was like, I don't know what he's going to say about this. Like me, like going away for a year and taking a year off or whatever. And so, I like sat him down and like explained what I was doing. I explained what my intentions were. And he was like, I absolutely have to support that. Like I can't like let you say no, but there is one deal. You have to graduate from this high school. But he was like, everyone at my school, every teacher I met with, every single person, all my friends were like, eventually became incredibly supportive, which I think was definitely had a factor in my parents saying yes. Especially when they like started using the platform and started seeing the platform and seeing what it was capable of. Then it became like, oh yeah, like this is a real thing that could work. And even if it doesn't, it's okay. So yeah.
Amazing. So the headmaster wanted you to be a notable alumni.
Maybe, I don't know, but I think he was very interested in the fact that it's definitely like an educational experience. Like he kept saying that, like, this is definitely a very, very great educational experience.
Yeah.
He didn't even mention like company, whatever, success, whatever, educational experience. He was like, this is going to be an amazing educational experience for you and you should definitely take it.
Yeah. Back to the intrinsic reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, think about like later in the Thea, like when I was really deep into the year off, like I was working with people I was working in an office, I was commuting, I was really getting a taste of work life, like, right? I was commuting, I was working in an office with people that were like 10 years my senior in their fields, right? But I obviously learned so much from them, all of them, right? Like about how to have production code not be terrible, because mine definitely was a lot at the start. Like at the start, my code was definitely like move fast, break things, but it's fine. So yeah, like definitely having that experience was just so educational and so clear. Like, oh, I want to do this with my life, and this is great. So
for sure, education is important, structured wise, but there's so much education that can happen outside the classroom as well.
Absolutely,
yeah. Okay, the second question then. So it's been a while, so I'll just say it again. I think it was like, for a student who might be listening right now, or honestly, even a young adult working, maybe they're super busy, but they have some kind of dream. So like, how would you go about even starting to take a step,
Take a step. Oh, okay. I think if you have a project in mind, like just, I don't know, work on, like, especially when I was starting Thea while I was still in school at like very, very early days, like I was working on it at all times, even to like a terrible degree where like I was like not doing schoolwork like where I was really like blowing off a lot of stuff to do it. But like I was working during lunch, I was working during like free periods, I was working like everything, like during every free moment I got, I was just trying to work on it and get something done and get a proof of concept able to present to someone. And so I think that just, if you really, really love your idea and you really, really have a passion for it, then I think the time comes.
You'll find a way.
You'll find the way.
Yeah. If it's important enough to you, you'll make time. There is no, I don't have time.
Yeah. But also like there is definitely a risk of like burnout, especially like if you do that. I definitely got burned out, like especially when I was in school, until I got the chance to like have work home separation and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, when I get home I'm done, I'm not gonna think about it, I'm just gonna chill out for a little bit. But I think definitely avoid burnout and make time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't burn out people. As Thea grows, how do you see your role evolving? Are there other areas in tech or education you're passionate about exploring?
So I have a lot of like different ideas I want to try out, especially after college. Not necessarily like, businesses. Some aren't, but it's my role definitely in college is going to take on more of an advisory role. I still work technically part-time, but in college I definitely want to get an education. So I'll definitely take more of an advisory role, and we're fortunate. Thea is fortunate to not be completely dependent on the 19-year-old high school dropout. So we're at that point where the 19-year-old with no college degree does not need to run everything, which is good. But Yeah. So I definitely, take that time in college to really get everything situated with me and really prioritize making sure I get everything out of college that I want to get out of college, and I'm not just spending all my time on Thea, which like when I was writing, like when I had college interviews, for example, that's like one of the questions they would ask, like what's your role with Thea like when you get to college? And I was like, yeah, I basically gave them this answer, like I really want to focus on college. I really want to get an education. So yeah.
Hypothetically, if Thea was not in a place where it can run relatively independently without you, how would you approach managing it and college?
Definitely better than I managed it in high school. I was way too like focused on it in high school when I was in high school and working on Thea. I would probably, I think time blocking is very important. I think do you use Google Calendar to like time block everything? Yeah, I would probably do something like that. Like, okay, this 3 hours of the day, like I'm going to work. But it's also like making sure that you're not dropping everything besides school and that thing, like making sure you're like interacting with people. Like on the weekends, you're not just in your basement working on it. You're also like talking to people and having a decent social life, which was also like funny with Thea because obviously I didn't have like school, so I wasn't able to really get a big social life, but my friends were still around. So like what I did is I still just competed on my school's robotics team. So that was my very, very big social life during my year off. My high school robotics team that they still let me compete on while I was technically not in school. So thank you. But yeah.
So you'd find a way to balance it.
Yeah, I'd say definitely don't drop everything. Definitely like work when like definitely work like every waking hour, but like don't work every waking hour. Right? Like yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. What's one major mindset that helped you be successful?
I think again, like the hardest part is starting. I think that was probably like way back at the beginning of the conversation, but like truly, like I am under the impression the hardest part is starting something. Like when you procrastinate, whatever, like at least the way I work and the way I function, like when I procrastinate something and then I sit down and I just like open up the page to whatever assignment or whatever, as soon as that happens, like, all right, I'm just gonna get it done. Like it's really not that deep. And also that mentality, and also like again with procrastination, like really like I started just saying to myself, like, okay, I can start now at 6 p.m. or I can start it at 1 a.m. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to start it now at 6 p.m. That makes sense. Like, really, like, yeah, like, what am I going to do? Scroll my phone for, like, whatever? Like, sit on my bed, like, doom scrolling? Oh, also another thing. Like, I deleted Instagram. I deleted YouTube. I deleted, like, all these apps. Like, I genuinely hate the fact that I scroll so much. I think that's like a universal experience for everyone. So I tried to just like get rid of everything. So I just didn't even have the option of scrolling on my phone. It just wasn't there.
Man, wait, that's great. I should have asked you that because I was going to say like you seem like you have a lot of time, but obviously you cut out the not so important things, right?
Yeah, especially when it gets to the point where like you look at your screen time and it's like, oh, or you get that notification on your phone every week and it's like, oh, you're up 42%. Like, oh, am I? Or it's like, you spent an average of 4 hours on your phone this week. And I'm like, or 4 hours a day on your phone this week. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Like, so yeah, stuff like that. I think just, especially like get rid of the useless distractions. Like, I don't know. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate scrolling so much.
No, Alex Hormozy says right now it's easier than ever to be distracted, but it's also easier than ever to get ahead, simply because everyone gets distracted easily.
That's a really great quote.
Yeah.
That's an amazing quote.
That guy has so many great quotes, man. But yeah, I really agree with the philosophy that at the end of the day, kind of like we said earlier, it's just maximizing what you actually like doing, because no one really likes scrolling. People hate themselves for it, and so just to delete it seems so hard, but it's actually pretty easy. Yeah. So you're living proof. Yeah,
my system was like, okay, I'm gonna delete it on Monday morning and then I'll re-download it on Friday and then I'll figure it out. But like that was basically my system. I was like, all right, delete it on Monday morning, and then on the weekend, all right, that's my break. Like I'll do whatever. Maybe Sunday I'll delete it if I have like a test or something coming up. But I think starting on Monday, just delete it and then re-download on Friday. Like, are you really missing that much? No. Like be for real. Like you're really not missing, like, oh no, I don't understand the meme. Like whatever. Like, Whatever.
Okay, that's a good tip I haven't heard before, because I do get people asking me like, oh, what if I miss out on like something that happened that week, right? But at least you can catch up every weekend.
Yeah, like it's I think it's in this, especially for teenagers in high school, it's too hard to just go cold turkey, no more Instagram. But yeah, just delete on Monday, man. like just don't. Like,
stop it. Get some help. You know that.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Baker. Right. This was an amazing conversation that I hope the listeners have gotten a lot of value out as well. Where can people find Thea and follow your journey?
People can find Thea if you just look up like Thea Study on Google, or just theastudy.com or thea.study, like whatever. Anything Thea with study will probably come up. If you want to follow my journey, I don't know. Follow my Instagram, I guess. I don't know. Be Bruce ____. Okay. Sure.
I'll leave these links all in the description, so you can check out Thea down below, and I'll also leave your socials. So yeah, well, hopefully
yeah, me and my one post. Yeah.
Okay.
Come
great.
check it out.
We'll just wait to see you on those lists like Forbes 30 under 30.
I don't know about that, but all right.
No, okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.